Most people would determine a metric, which is probably reach or engagement. A SMART goal could be, by the end of 2022, I'm going to have 3,500 followers on Instagram. And then from there, you can create different strategies, tactics, objectives to reach that main goal. Hi guys, I'm Caitlin. Welcome to my channel. Basically, in today's video, I'm going to be covering how to develop a social media strategy step by step and give y'all all the little tips and tricks of what I've learned along the way. So basically, to give you guys a little bit of background about myself, is I recently graduated in 2022 with a degree in marketing, a minor in HR management, and a minor concentration in entrepreneurship. I'm currently pursuing my MBA as well, and I have a lot of history with social media management, social media marketing as a whole, and I've done so many internships, side hustles, side jobs, and I'm currently the director of marketing for a small business that's rapidly growing in Texas. I basically manage around 15 different social media platforms, and I have learned a lot of insight along the way through school, real life experience, and society in general and how social media works. So if you guys want to know all the tips and tricks on how to develop an amazing social media strategy, then just keep watching. So all of this is dependent on whether you are freelancing, you're the director of marketing, you're a social media manager, or you're contracting yourself out. Some people have bosses, some people are their own boss, or you're trying to create maybe your own social media strategies. All of these things I'm about to tell you are just guidelines and little ways to navigate social media. So the first thing, this one's obvious, is you have to set goals. So let's talk about this in a way where you're contracted out and someone's asking you for your professional opinion. Something that's always talked about in school is the concept of SMART goals, and people use this in the social media world as just SMART acronym. SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic or relevant, and timely. So what does that actually mean is that you have to have very specific goals that can be kept track of, and you can have benchmarks of the success, and you know exactly what you're trying to achieve in a certain amount of time. So for example, you're trying to grow your brand image. What is a SMART goal that can go with that? What is a goal in general that could go with the brand image? All of these things are very complex, but they're very easy to just say broadly out in the open. But how do we achieve that? That's what makes the difference between successful social media management or strategists and just being very ambitious without anything to back it up. Some SMART goals that you can attack with brand awareness. Most people would determine a metric, which is probably reach or engagement. A SMART goal could be, by the end of 2022, I'm going to have 3,500 followers on Instagram. And then from there, you can create different strategies, tactics, objectives to reach that main goal. Other goals could be a little more specific, like I want 3% increase in engagement by next month. How do you get there? What does that mean? Those are the things that make it more realistic. You can't just be, obviously anyone would be like, I want to blow up on TikTok. Okay, what's your SMART goal for that? You want to get 10,000 new followers from blowing up a reel by the end of the month. Something like that. Probably not 10,000 followers by the end of the month, but you never know with TikTok. So you can kind of apply this to your own social media. Like, how do you grow? What sets you apart? What have you learned? Knowing social media in general, you kind of know what works, what doesn't. And then through these SMART goals comes basically analytics as a whole. Analytics as a whole is so diverse. Some of you might know exactly what all analytics are, or this might be the first time you're hearing about it. Social media analytics is keeping track of your engagement, your reach, your followers, your likes. It's not just, oh, so-and-so got 10 likes, so-and-so got a billion likes. It really is about that engagement rate, that click-through rate, those little metrics that you need to keep track of, which are in your analytics. Maybe if you're more of a beginner, you can go into your Instagram insights and analytical tools. You have this in Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Everywhere within your bio, you can find insights, which is analytics. And then that's where you'll find your growth, what works, what doesn't. Nothing will just tell you, hey, this is what works, but the numbers will show, and that's where you need your strategist and someone to analyze your data to figure out what works for your company, especially on a larger scale. But don't worry, you don't have to do all of this analytic judgment on your own. There's plenty of tools out there, and that's what I use. I used to do it on my own when I was trying to be ambitious and get a job and using a lot of my schooling to kind of become an internship and show my worth. I did it all on my own. I had absolutely no tools. I went into the Insight, calculated things, created whole documents on how to achieve this, and now I'm here to tell you that there's actually a lot of tools that can help you with this, and you won't spend 40 hours trying to figure out what the engagement rate is. Okay, not the engagement rate, but a whole document on a social media strategy yes, I spent quite some time, and then I realized that there were all these tools you could pay for and it would all be there. So some things to keep track of your analytics is just Google Analytics as a whole. It depends how large a business is. Some people have analytics just within their Instagram for free, Facebook Studio, Meta Suite, all of that good stuff. But when it comes to those larger scale businesses, those people who are really trying to have a social media strategy and they already have a lot of sales and whatnot, that's whenever you hit your Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, they track all these things for you. Google Analytics is usually free. If you already have Google Ads, Google Analytics is there keeping track of absolutely everything that you have. There might be even so much information that you don't even understand what all is there. So these tools are amazing because they also keep track of the past. So even if you kind of missed something and you hire someone on, they can look at your past results and your past analytics. So through these analytics, you can determine your SMART goals. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're trying to increase your engagement, that might be different than another company. Because some people are like, well, I want to increase my brand awareness. And you have to realize, how are you going to increase your brand awareness? Just posting and having a lot of people see your things doesn't mean your brand awareness is going to increase. Or other people want their product to be sold. They want to see a quick return on their investment. So that means you need more website clicks, more purchases. How do you promote that actual product? And that's where all those engagements, reach, likes come in. If you have a lot of likes, that doesn't necessarily mean someone's buying those pairs of shoes. But if you're in the beverage business, it might be hard to keep track of how many people are actually purchasing in store. But if it's something that's online, you can literally track how many people visited that website, how many people purchased, at what time did they purchase, at what time did they click, or did they come from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok? Versus when you have a product in person, how do you keep track of that? There's so many different metrics that you can follow in order to achieve those goals. You can figure out where your sales come from if it's from social media. Social media is set up to keep track of things. Everything is online for a reason. So, like I mentioned earlier, you can have your website clicks. You can have other platforms that show you that like this is where they exactly came from at the exact time. This is the demographic. This is what gets in front of their eyes. This is when you should be posting in like the algorithm. So analytics as a whole usually has things that can also track what I just mentioned. There's things like Square, which is the POS system that keeps track of how many purchases. A ton of businesses have Square. It's like an Apple Square business. Almost every small business will have Square. There's also just website analytics in general. So all of these systems, anything where you have a transaction most likely has some type of system to keep track of all the details. Who bought it, what kind of age they are, if they have access to some of those details, and that could be really helpful determining which demographic you have and which ones are being attracted, especially when it comes to that specific transaction. So one of the next really important things, other than analytics, I would say this is one of the most important things anyone needs in order to have a social media strategy and just a successful business or job as a whole. Competitor research. So competitor research is so important. Most likely people have already shown you trial and error. They have already achieved some of the goals that you're trying to set. So we need to be looking at how often are these people on their platforms? Who are they attracting? Who are their customers? What are their followings? What are the other brands? What are those competitors? Who are their customers looking at? What is their vibe? What is their aesthetic? Who do they like? Who do they watch? Do they listen to influencers? Are they in sports? Who is going to have a voice for them and your business? Competitor research is really important, especially when it comes to demographics. You need to know who these people are, what age they are. Whenever you first sit down with your client, you need to ask them, who is your demographic? Who is your target market? And that doesn't mean that what they have already can't be different than what they want to achieve. Just because they've tackled, the elderly people who really need blah, blah, blah products, that does not mean that they don't want to attract a younger crowd, or vice versa. They've already attracted, the 15-year-old girls who really like jewelry. How do I start getting that into Dillard's? How do I attract those older people? Or is that a completely far-fetched idea and you need to just focus on the people you already have engaged? These are the things you need to ask them, and these are the things that they're also hiring you to determine later on through metric. A really fun tip that I can tell y'all is if you're really trying to determine demographics, this can be kind of for like another video as a whole, but just a quick summary is go to your competitors, find a couple of their followers, see what they're into. You kind of want to really analyze the competitor followers and see what they're into, like I mentioned earlier, like what do they like, who do they watch, what are those little things that you can kind of get ahead of and use, psychology and manipulation to get your product ahead of them because you already did your research. This is one of the most important things, and all of these things can determine frequency, what time they're on. Once you determine your demographic, you can go onto your insights and see, okay, when are the 21-year-old girls on Instagram to buy these new shorts or this coffee? You can see where they live. You can see their geographic. You can see eventually maybe how much money they spend, how frequently they will purchase your product. If you have evergreen product that people are purposely coming to and need replenishment of their supplies, or it's a one-time thing that lasts you 3 months, it's a one-time thing, you're gonna get like a high loyalty status, a return rate, how many times are they frequent customers, all of these things, consistency and frequency are good things to know. So then that also goes into competitor analysis, kind of like I was saying. Now that you have done the demographics and you figured out who you have, now figure out all of their patterns, their consumer patterns. When are they gonna get your product? When are they not gonna get your product? When should you not even bother trying to attract those people at a certain time? If it's sports, maybe in the sporting season and then you have big dead times, or maybe you have high traffic during the holiday season. And after all these things, you can have a social media audit. This is very complex and you wanna keep things over time, basically, to determine kind of your skills and what you've done. So for social media audits, you kind of have some baseline metrics to keep track and have benchmarks of the progress you've made, the progress the company's made, and all the things that you've implemented, what works, what doesn't. If you started at 100 followers, now you have 40,000, you want to make sure that people know you started at that time and all the progress we've seen, the ups and the downs, and what works. Like, was TikTok work? Was Facebook, Google Analytics, Google Ad, physical marketing? What kind of things actually work? Within your social media audit, you want to keep track, kind of like a portfolio, and keeping track of all the progression over time on what your social media strategy has done, and overall the baseline of where you started and benchmarks on how to improve, and to just keep track of everything that you've done and everything that the company has accomplished as a whole. Now, this is another really important thing that everyone needs to implement throughout a social media strategy in general. We mentioned this earlier briefly, but I just want to focus on this as a whole. So through your SMART goals, you have your goals. You have, then from goals, you have objectives. You guys just kind of have like objectives as a whole, and then you narrow down your goals. Through your goals, you have strategies and tactics to specifically achieve these things. You have content calendars. You need to keep track of all of these strategies that you want to implement in order to achieve these goals. Like, for instance, if you're trying to gain engagement on your TikTok, what kind of TikToks are you going to be posting? At what time? At what rate? So you could say something like, I want to increase 5% engagement on TikTok by the end of the month. Through that, I'm going to have a strategy to try to target the younger generation who's into cute colored leggings. So I'm going to be making reels with influencers twice a week, posted at 5 p.m. Those are very specific, and you have your specific plans. So through these specific plans, you can start implementing this in a calendar, or you can work backwards, have a calendar, and figure out kind of like the specifics from there, and then implement all those little details in your calendar and kind of update it. So without a doubt, you have to have content calendars. Some people want to do really out in advance and have really evergreen content. Evergreen content is something that can kind of always survive. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be aesthetic. People are always just going to see it. It can kind of be a backup thing no matter what. It can be posted. It's your product appealing to the customer's eye. And then there's things that are more weekly, things that are maybe seasonal, or things that might be trending. You want to stay atop the trends, but you also want to have evergreen content so you are a stable, loyal platform where the customers know that you are always going to be providing and appealing to their needs. So once you figure out all your strategies and tactics, you can have your content calendars and kind of implement all of this into place. And it's really important also to implement these calendars with tools. Having infrastructure and times to plan everything out, you want to be able to see what's happening. You don't want to just all of a sudden be posting, especially when it comes to multiple platforms, kind of like what I do. You need to have absolutely everything planned out. And even once you have everything planned out, issues will still arise. New things will start occurring. You might want to stay up. You can't plan out a trend 3 months in advance, but you can plan out your evergreen content and then stay adaptable in between then. That's extremely important. Adaptability is essential when it comes to social media marketing. If you're going to be sticking to your ways, you're not going to survive the industry. This is something you need to always be relevant and adaptable, but you also need to know not to just attack only trendy things. You want to be able to create a very reliable brand, a very high brand image where the customers know you're reliable, but you also are relevant to them. So overall, those are all of my tips and tricks. I hope you guys liked it. There's so many more things to come. This is literally extremely broad. There's so many things we could go into. There's so many details. There's so many things that you're gonna learn and I'm gonna learn until the next video. So if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. I want to be able to make more of these, and it's such an awesome hobby of mine, and I really just want to show people what I've learned and have that to the public eye, just so we can all be successful and I can have fun while learning some of my most favorite things that I've enjoyed. And thank you guys, and thanks for watching. Bye.